This is going to be a brief video, and I'll tell you why. Because otherwise, I stand the risk of repeating myself over the latest stories that are related to West Ham players apparently ready to leave the club. Um, what I'm going to tell you about two players in particular just feels like a bit of a rehash of the stories that we've already been hearing. But before I do that, we've got to talk very, very briefly about England. We had it in our hands. We're on top. We took the lead. We gave them very little to work with. And then the ultimate error, a goal up. And then we decided to defend the lead far too soon for my liking. Taking key players off allowed Argentina to do what they did best, and that was to attack relentlessly. Tuchel screwed up. He screwed up tactically, and it allowed them back into the game. And we got punished. Oh, well, we move on to Euro 2028. And if he is still around, apparently he said he will be taking England into the next year, into the Euros. Let's see whether he's learned his lesson from it. Look, if you're new to this channel, or if you've watched the West Ham Voice before, but yet to become a subscriber, a QR code has just appeared in that corner. If you enjoy this content, why not click on that, become a subscriber free of charge, costs nothing to subscribe. So let's crack on. Now, one thing that's becoming crystal clear during this transfer window is that rumours are going to be changing almost by the hour. 1 minute a player is supposedly staying, the next minute another club is preparing a bid. And only a few days ago, I uploaded videos on both Crysencio Summerville and Konstantinos Mavropanos, giving you an update on where I think they both are. Now, within hours, let's deal with Dinos first of all, very briefly. Within hours, after doing the video I did about him the other day, Leeds United suddenly emerged as potential suitors. Now, Leeds could genuinely be interested. I have no doubt about that. Would Mavropanos improve their defence? Without question. But despite those rumours, I'm still not convinced he leaves for Leeds United. And here's why. I've said before that if Dinos moves at the age of 28, I think it's because he's going to want to go back to playing Champions League football. That's absolutely no disrespect to Leeds United, and I don't mean it in that way. They've maintained their place in the Premier League, and we couldn't do that. But I think he'll choose his next move carefully, if he moves at all. And then you've got another interesting twist. Reports suggest that Leeds United are closing in on Tariq Muharemovic from Sassuolo. If that's true, perhaps Dinos isn't even their number one defensive target. So, whilst rumours continue, my opinion on him hasn't changed. I still think he's more likely to start in the Championship wearing the claret and blue of West Ham than anything else. But the player I really want to talk about is Crysencio Summerville again, because this story does keep changing by the minute. Every day there seems to be another twist. Roma, Man United, Aston Villa, different journalists, different ITKs, different reports, different valuations. One thing that remains exactly the same is that West Ham have not agreed to sell him. And I think there's a very good reason for that. Let's start with Roma. According to Fabricio Romano, personal terms have been agreed. The player reportedly wants around 5 million a year, which is about 100 grand a week, which is about right. I think he's on just a bit less than that, 70 grand a week at West Ham United. And good luck to him if he gets it. Footballers have relatively short careers, and they'll naturally try to maximise their earnings. I don't blame him for that whatsoever. What I find interesting, though, is the assumption that agreeing personal terms somehow means that the transfer is almost complete, because it ain't, not even close. Roma are reported to be prepared to offer now 45 million euros, which is about 38 million pounds, which is a step up from the 34 that they were apparently meant to be rumoured to be offering only yesterday. Sounds impressive though, doesn't it? Except that West Ham United are not selling Crysencio Summerville for 38 million pounds. If reports are to be believed, West Ham's valuation is significantly higher. And when I spoke about Somerville the other day, I talked about this supposed 40 million release clause in his contract. So it's not even getting to that. Others suggest that West Ham simply just want £50 million regardless. look, whichever figure is accurate, Roma, whatever they've agreed with the player, have not reached the figure that West Ham United wants. And that's the key point. I've seen plenty of comments saying, well, if the player wants to leave, you can't keep hold of a player that's going to be unhappy. So what? Players wanting to leave doesn't suddenly reduce their market value. West Ham own the player's registration. West Ham decide what to accept, what offer to accept. Not Roma, not the players' representatives, not social media, and not ITKs, that's for sure. Negotiations with Somerville first are, is all right, but it means that they're not negotiating with West Ham United. It's not automatically going to force West Ham's hand. If anything, it's going to strengthen our position, because now Roma have publicly shown an interest in the player, and shown everybody that Somerville is the player they really want. It doesn't weaken our position; it strengthens it. Then there's Man United, the one again, that's risen over the last 24, 48 hours. Reports suggest United admire Somerville. Great. The latest report suggests Man United, as I mentioned the other day, are going to need to sell Marcus Rashford before making a serious move for Somerville. So immediately there are hurdles. There comes another issue. Again, their reported valuation is even more derisory than that of Roma's, because apparently Man United are not going to budge on 30 million. 30 million. West Ham aren't entertaining 30 million pounds, not from Man United, not from anybody at all. So once again, interest? Sure. Realistic chances of that valuation? No. And then we've got Aston Villa. This is perhaps another development or another sort of interesting turnaround. Reports suggest, I did mention, didn't I, that Villa will soon come calling, and they have. Apparently they have. Reports suggest that they've made the player an extremely lucrative offer to blow Roma out of the window, out of the water. Now, notice the wording, an offer to the player, not necessarily an acceptable offer that West Ham will agree on. They're two very different conversations. Villa might well convince Somerville that, he should come and play for them. But they've also got to convince West Ham United. And that's where every single interested club keeps arriving at the same problem: price, valuation of the player. It's what I keep saying. People are confusing player negotiations with club negotiations. They're very, very different. They're very separate. Somerville may well agree terms with Roma today, Villa tomorrow. Who knows? Next week, he will agree terms with Man United. None of it matters unless somebody meets West Ham's asking price. Then ask yourself one simple question. Why would West Ham reduce the valuation of the player? Has he become a worse footballer? No. Apart from anything, he's actually, he's heightened his valuation because of his performances in the World Cup. 24 years of old, so he hasn't grown very old overnight. Has his demand disappeared? Anything but. His demand has increased. Roma want him. Man United are monitoring. Villa are interested. When multiple clubs want the same player, normally the price is going to go up, not down. Let's also remember where West Ham are at in all this. Yeah, we've been relegated. Nobody wanted that. But this football club also wants to bounce straight back into the Premier League. Promotion at first attempt is worth hundreds of millions over the coming years. Keeping one of our best attacking players might just be worth more than accepting an offer that's 10, 15 million pounds lower than our valuation. And here's another angle. Suppose West Ham refuse to sell. Suppose Somerville stays. Suppose he tears up the Championship again, like he did when he was at Leeds United. What then? Suddenly, we're back in the Premier League. His valuation won't have fallen. It may well increase again. It's probably why these teams want this player now at around 38 million pounds, because they know that if they tear it up for their own team, that his value will increase. Roma, they buy him for 38 million pounds and he does really well in Italy. Next summer, they'll be selling him for 50 million, not us. So West Ham United are negotiating from a position of strength. So why the panic? Well, actually, ironically, there is no panic. certainly not from West Ham's point of view. And this is why I don't buy into the narrative that West Ham are somehow under pressure. We're absolutely not. The pressure is on the buying clubs. Roma need to decide whether they're going to pay the asking price. Man United need to decide whether they're going to prioritise him or whether they can afford him at all before they sell anyone. And Villa need to decide whether they're prepared to match West Ham's valuation. And West Ham, well, we can just simply sit back, watch it all unraveling before our very eyes and say no. When our valuation of the player is not met, we just go, no thanks. Negotiating directly with the player and his agents, it's a tactic. It's a clear way of trying to add pressure onto the club that's got the player, onto West Ham, by saying, look, your player wants to leave. He's agreed that he wants to come to us. He's agreed terms with us. He's not going to be happy playing in the Championship. But it's West Ham who currently hold all the aces by saying the player has a contract for another 3 years and we ain't selling unless someone matches our valuation. Now, could somebody eventually bid 50 million for him? Absolutely. At that point, the conversation completely changes. Every player has got a price, but until someone reaches that particular price, I honestly don't see why West Ham should be blinking first. So, where does that leave us? For me, not very different to where we were a few days ago. I still believe Konstantinos Mavropanos starts the season at West Ham. That Leeds links haven't convinced me otherwise. But the real story right now is Somerville. The interest, I'm sure, is genuine. Roma, Man United, Villa, I'm sure they're all interested. The player may even have agreed personal terms with one or more of those clubs. But none of that wins West Ham a transfer fee. And until somebody decides to pay what West Ham believe he's worth, this transfer remains exactly where it is today. A rumour, not a done deal. And I actually think that West Ham hold far more cards than many people realise. As always, tell me what you think. Do you think we should hold out for the money that we think he's worth? Should West Ham stand firm and refuse to budge on the valuation? Or if somebody offers around 38 mil, should we take the money and reinvest it elsewhere? Let me know your thoughts. If you've enjoyed the video, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification to let you know when I'm next on, and of course, hit the hype button as well. Until next time, I'll see you all soon.